You think loyalty is complicated? You think trust takes years to build and 1 second to break? You think cheating is always obvious? Lipstick on a collar, texts in the middle of the night, sudden distance? But here's what nobody tells you: the most dangerous infidelity doesn't announce itself. It hides behind plausible deniability, behind your own second G'ing, behind 7 specific psychological tricks designed to make you feel crazy for even asking the question. Let me be clear from the jump. This isn't about demonizing women. This isn't about creating paranoia or turning you into some bitter, suspicious shell of a man. This is about pattern recognition. This is about understanding the game. So you stop playing it blind, because the men who get destroyed by infidelity aren't destroyed by the act itself. They're destroyed by the gaslighting that came before it. The months or years of being told their instincts were wrong, their concerns were insecure, their reality was imaginary. And if you're the kind of man who wants to see reality clearly, who refuses to live in comfortable delusion, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Not for me, for you. Because the world will spend every single day trying to convince you that your boundaries are toxic, that your standards are unrealistic, that your gut feeling is just insecurity. You need constant reminders that you're not crazy, that your self respect isn't negotiable. So hit that button, because we're going deep and you'll want this truth consistently in your feed. Here's why cheating is often hidden. The thesis: cheating isn't just physical betrayal, it's a system, a sequence of psychological maneuvers that create fog, that rewrite history, that transfer blame, that make the victim defend the perpetrator. And the 7 tricks I'm about to walk you through aren't just tactics, they're revelation points. Each one is a test. Each one shows you whether you're dealing with someone who respects you or someone who's managing you. Trick number 1: she accuses you of cheating out of nowhere. You haven't changed your behavior. You haven't been distant. You haven't been secretive. But suddenly, she's asking where you were, who you were with, why you're on your phone. So much. And here's the kicker: you start defending yourself. You start explaining. You start showing her your texts, your locations, your receipts. And while you're busy proving your innocence, she's normalizing surveillance. She's normalizing suspicion. She's flipping the script so thoroughly that you forget the original question. Why is she suddenly paranoid? Because projection is the oldest trick in the psychology textbook. When someone is doing something they know is wrong, the guilt doesn't just sit quietly. It manifests, it externalizes, it gets thrown onto the safest target, you. So she accuses you of the very thing she's doing. And now the entire conversation is about your fidelity, not hers. You're defending, she's prosecuting, and in that role reversal, she gets 2 things. She alleviates her guilt by making you the bad guy in her mind. And she gathers intel on how you hide things, what your trick number 1 emotional confusion patterns are, what your weaknesses are. The man who falls for this loses twice. First, he loses his frame. He goes from confident to defensive in 30 seconds. Second, he loses his leverage, because now if he ever accuses her, she's already established the precedent that accusations are just insecurity. She's already made suspicion look like the real problem. Trick number 2: she doesn't lie, not directly. She just never gives you the full picture. You ask where she's going, she says out with Sarah. You ask where, she says just dinner. You ask where dinner is, she gets annoyed. Why are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me? And just like that, your reasonable question becomes your character flaw. This is the art of the half truth. She's not technically lying, so if you push back, you look controlling, but she's also not being transparent. So your gut never settles. You're stuck in this liminal space where you can't prove anything, but you can't relax either. And that's the point. Strategic ambiguity keeps you off balance. It trains you to stop asking questions because asking questions costs you peace, costs you affection, costs you the relationship stability. And here's what it costs you over time: your instincts. You start second guessing every gut feeling because she's conditioned you to believe that your suspicion is the enemy, not her behavior. You start prioritizing her comfort over your clarity. You become the kind of man who ignores red flags because addressing them feels harder than living with them. And that's exactly the environment cheating thrives in: low visibility, high tolerance, internal doubt. Trick number three: you bring up a concern. Maybe her phone is face down more often. Maybe she's been distant. Maybe there's a new name that keeps popping up. So you say something calm, reasonable, non accuse, and she explodes. Not with an answer, with emotion, tears, anger. "I can't believe you think that about me after everything I've done for you. You're so insecure. It's pushing me away." Suddenly, you're tricking her too. Sudden privacy. Shift's not talking about the issue anymore. You're comforting her. You're apologizing. You're the one who caused the problem by noticing the problem. This is emotional flooding and it's psychological warfare. It weaponizes your empathy. It takes your very reasonable need for honesty and turns it into an attack on her. And because you care about her, because you don't want to hurt her, you back off. You drop it. You tell yourself maybe you were overreacting. Maybe you were being insecure. Maybe you were making something out of nothing. But here's the reality: someone who's innocent doesn't respond to questions with theatrical distress. They respond with clarity, with patience, with reassurance, backed by transparency. Someone who's hiding something responds with chaos because chaos shuts down investigation. Emotion becomes the smoke screen. And the more you trigger it, the more you learn to stay silent. Trick number four: she's the good girl. She's the one who talks about loyalty. She's the one who posts about honesty, about trust, about ride or die commitment. She's the one who criticizes cheaters publicly, who tells stories about friends who got cheated on, and how disgusting that is. And because of that public persona, you never suspect her. You think she would never. That's not who she is. But here's the truth: the loudest virtue signal is often the biggest cover. People who are genuinely loyal don't need to announce it constantly. They don't need to perform it. They just live it. But people who are not loyal, people who are doing the opposite, they need the performance. They need the alibi. They need everyone, including you, to believe the narrative so thoroughly that suspicion becomes unthinkable. So she builds this identity: trustworthy, moral, transparent, and then she operates behind it. And when you do start to suspect, the cognitive dissonance is so strong that you dismiss your own evidence. No way, not her. She's not like that. This trick destroys men slowly because it attacks their judgment at the root. You stop trusting your perception. You stop trusting patterns. You start trusting the tricker three: gaslighting and blame branding instead of the behavior. And by the time the truth comes out, you're not just dealing with betrayal, you're dealing with the humiliation of having been fooled so completely. Number five: she talks about him, the guy, the co worker, the old friend, the trainer, the cousin's friend. She mentions him casually, frequently, positively. She tells you how nice he is, how helpful, how funny. She shows you texts. She normalizes his presence in her life so thoroughly that when you feel uncomfortable, you feel irrational because she's been so transparent, right? She's not hiding him. She's talking about him openly. So, what's the problem? The problem is triangulation. She's introducing a third person into the relationship's emotional space and then managing your reaction to it. She's conditioning you to accept his presence, his access, his influence. And every time you feel that twinge of discomfort, you suppress it because she's made that discomfort feel like jealousy, like insecurity, like a you problem. But transparency isn't the same as appropriateness. Just because she tells you about him doesn't mean the dynamic is acceptable. Just because she's open doesn't mean the boundary isn't being crossed. And here's the thing: by the time something physical happens, the emotional affair has been running for months. She's already invested, she's already attached. The physical act is just the final formality of something that's been building in plain sight. Trick number 6, she's struggling. She's stressed. She's dealing with something work, family, mental health. And because you love her, you give her space. You give her grace. You don't ask too many questions because you don't want to add pressure. You become supportive, accommodating, patient, and while you're being the good guy, she's using that space to explore options, to text someone else, to meet up, to create emotional distance under the cover of personal crisis. This is the empathy trap, and it's devastating because your kindness becomes the weapon. Your emotional intelligence becomes the loophole. You think you're being a good partner by not being demanding, but she's interpreting your patience as disengagement, your space as absence. Trick number 4, weaponized independence, your support as passivity. And in that vacuum, someone else steps in, someone who's present in a way you're intentionally not being because you're trying to be respectful. And here's the cruelest part: when it all comes out, she'll blame you. You weren't there for me. I felt alone. I needed someone and you were distant. She'll rewrite your respect as neglect, your space as abandonment, and suddenly the affair becomes your fault. Your empathy becomes the evidence of your failure. Number 7, she doesn't end it. She doesn't confess. She just fades. Less affection, less sex, less conversation, less presence. And when you ask what's wrong, she says she doesn't know. She's tired. She's stressed. She's just not feeling it. She makes it ambiguous enough that you can't pin it on anything specific, but clear enough that you feel it. This is the exit ramp. She's already checked out emotionally, possibly already involved with someone else, but she's keeping you around as the safety net. She's creating distance without accountability. She's letting the relationship die slowly so that when it finally ends, it feels mutual. It feels like a natural conclusion rather than a betrayal. And if you find out later that she was seeing someone during the fade, she'll say, "We were barely together anyway. I thought we were done." This trick destroys you because it takes away your closure. You never get the clean break. You never get the honest conversation. You just get slow erosion, gaslighting disguised as emotional confusion, and then retroactive reframing that makes you question whether the relationship even existed the way you thought it did. So, what do all 7 tricks have in common? Control. Every single one is about managing your perception, limiting your access to truth, and transferring accountability away from her and onto you. They're all designed to make you the problem. Too insecure, too demanding, too suspicious, too distant, too present, too something. And as long as you're the problem, she's never the one who has to answer for her choices. And here's what it costs you if you don't recognize these patterns: your reality. You stop trusting yourself. You trick sucker 5, overcompensation. Stop trusting your gut. You become the kind of man who explains away red flags, who justifies inconsistencies, who defends someone who's actively betraying him. You become small, uncertain, manageable. And that version of you, he doesn't just lose the relationship, he loses himself. But here's the reframe. Here's the hard truth that actually sets you free. You are not responsible for someone else's lack of integrity. You can be the best man in the world: loyal, present, strong, supportive, clear, and she can still cheat. Not because you weren't enough, because she chose dishonesty over accountability, because she valued the thrill, the validation, the escape more than she valued you. And that is entirely about her character, not your worth. The man who survives this, who doesn't just survive but thrives, is the man who understands one thing: presence over proof. Stop trying to catch her. Stop looking for evidence. Stop playing detective. Because the moment you're investigating your own partner, the relationship is already over. Either she's cheating and you'll find out eventually, or she's not. And you've destroyed trust by hunting for ghosts. Either way, you lose. Instead, operate from presence. Be clear, be consistent, be boundaried, and be willing to walk away the moment your peace is compromised. Not because you're punishing her, because you respect yourself too much to live in suspicion. The right woman will meet your presence with transparency. The wrong one will meet it with resistance. And that resistance is your answer. Here's what that man looks like. He's not paranoid. He's discerning. He doesn't interrogate. He observes. He doesn't tolerate ambiguity because his self respect demands clarity. When something feels off, he doesn't ignore it or spiral. Trick number 6, controlled transparency addresses it once, calmly, directly. And if the response is deflection, flooding, accusation, or vagueness, he doesn't argue. He adjusts his investment. He pulls back, not as a tactic, as a standard. He doesn't chase reassurance. He doesn't beg for transparency. He simply makes it clear. This is what integrity looks like in my life. And if you can't meet that, I'll respect your choice by making mine. He doesn't operate from fear of loss. He operates from confidence in his own value. And that energy, that self possession, either calls her back into alignment or exposes the misalignment that was always there. Here's your action sequence. Stop explaining yourself. The moment you're defending your gut feeling, you've already lost frame. Your instinct doesn't need a thesis, it needs respect. If you feel something's off, say it once. This doesn't sit right with me. I need clarity. That's it. Her response tells you everything. Stop accepting ambiguity. If she can't or won't give you a straight answer, that is the answer. Clarity is kindness. Vagueness is violence. The person who loves you will not leave you in limbo. They'll over-communicate, not under X lane. Stop rewarding bad behavior. If she floods, if she deflects, if she accuses, do not comfort, do not apologize, do not backtrack. You say, I asked a simple question. If that triggers this reaction, we have a bigger issue. Then you give space not to punish, to protect your peace. Reclaim your attention. Stop pouring energy into someone who's draining it without reciprocity. Redirect into your purpose, your body, your mission, your trick. Number 7, playing the victim friendships, your growth. The right woman will notice the shift and step up. The wrong one will resent it and reveal herself and be willing to lose her. This is the ultimate boundary. The moment you need the relationship more than you need your self-respect, you've given her the keys to your destruction. You have to be more committed to your peace than to her presence. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's power. Because here's the final truth. You are the answer, not her. Not the relationship, not the validation. You, your integrity, your boundaries, your willingness to honor yourself, even when it costs you comfort. The relationship is not the foundation. You are. And when you rebuild from that understanding, you stop attracting people who exploit your loyalty. You start attracting people who match it. You stop being the man who gets played. You become the man who can't be played because his reality isn't negotiable. You stop asking, is she cheating? And start asking, is this relationship honoring me? And that question, that frame, that standard, it changes everything. So if you want more of this, more truth that doesn't coddle, more frameworks that actually protect you, more reality over fantasy, then final warning and takeaways. Subscribe because this channel exists to remind you that your self-respect is not up for debate, that your boundaries are not toxic, that your instincts are not insecurity. You need this message on repeat because the world will try to convince you otherwise every single day. You are not alone in this. There's a whole community of men reclaiming their frame, rebuilding their standards, and refusing to live in confusion. You're one of them.